What's up, guys? It's the Dorm Room Podcast back in your ears from Fred D. Brown Jr. Hall in Rocky Top, Tennessee. My name's Austin, and I'm here with
Jackson,
Jack,
and Garrett.
And today we're going to talk about some of the big matchups that occurred this past weekend, but we're also going to take a deeper dive into the Georgia State versus Tennessee game, as we are all fellow volunteers and part of Vol Nation. I know for a lot of us, most of us watched the game. I'm sure everyone listening either watched the game or heard of this incredible upset that Georgia State pulled off. Georgia State, if you don't know, beat Tennessee, came to Tennessee and beat them 38-30. Now, Georgia State being obviously a very low-end school in the realm of college football, how did this take place? What does Tennessee have to do to move forward to get past this loss?
I think the first thing they have to do to move forward is just hang on to the ball. Like, the Vols had 3 turnovers, 2 of them being fumbles, one of them being Ty Chandler, who was supposed to step up this year. And it was the second play of the game as well. Garantano, he played pretty well other than his 2 sloppy turnovers. He had an interception and a fumble. But I think the biggest key is turnovers, and Georgia State also converted on all 3 of the Vols turnovers, turned it into 17 points. So that's a big turnaround, just turnovers in general.
Yeah, I think the defense definitely needs to step up. You know, them jogging to the ball isn't good enough for an SEC school. With mostly 4 stars and some 5-star players, they should be hustling to the ball and making tackles. But we just didn't see that against Georgia State.
Yeah, I think it's from now on it's got to be mentality. They got to keep their head up. I mean, if they keep their head down like every week at practice, I mean, like, oh, we lost to Georgia State. How are we going to beat BYU? It's like if you're going with that, you already lost. So they just got to make sure they keep their head up.
Yeah, the offense was looking pretty good. They put up 38 points. Like we said, Garantano had a pretty decent game. He went 26 or 40, threw for 311 yards, had 2 TDs. He did have 1 interception, which was on the second play of the game, which definitely wasn't a good start for the Vols. He also had a fumble, but other than that, he played pretty good offensively. But yeah, I think we touched on it. The main thing is the defense. I mean, Georgia State had 213 rushing yards, and I mean, Tennessee, that is just unacceptable to give up against a Sun Belt Conference team.
I think the biggest disappointment for me in this game was Ty Chandler coming into his second year starting. He really had a disappointing game against a bad team. Last year, he was putting up much better statistics against much higher quality competition. The other day, he was 6 carries, 48 yards, a touchdown, and his longest run was 31 yards with a fumble. But that long of 31 yards, that's a big chunk of his carry. So he was averaging about 1.5 yards, 2 yards to carry on the other 18 yards on 5 carries. So I think it was just a really disappointing game for him because he's really supposed to step up and be a leader.
Yeah, I agree. This is supposed to be a breakout season for him, and he didn't perform very well against a Sun Belt Conference team. So,
speaking of a leader and standout, Juwan Jennings, although we looked terrible, Juwan Jennings showed some.
Yeah, he had career highs.
Yeah.
That was a career
like
game.
the only one on the team that's got his head straight.
I mean, if you look at the video that Vols football posted yesterday, he's running around the field, getting everyone hyped up, you know, getting the team fired up for BYU this week.
Yeah, he wants to be the leader of the team. He is the leader of the team.
The thing is, you can't just have, on an SEC team, you can't just have one of those guys on your team. You got to have multiple that are willing to step up.
It's 11.
Yeah, you got to have 11 on both sides of the ball.
So obviously there was like a lot of issues on the field, but y'all want to talk about what happened off the field with Jordan Murphy and Terrell Bailey?
Jordan Murphy apparently left at his own will. Do you all believe that, or do you think Pruitt was like, "Listen, I'm going to give you the opportunity to leave now, or you're off"?
I think it's the second one. I think
Pruitt got involved.
Yeah, I think Pruitt was involved, and like, there's no reason a player just leaves from the game that he loves so much, especially like a lot of these guys come up in a rough upbringing. So I just don't see that happening.
I mean, first let's give a little background. There was a tweet about the game, and it was a video of a man walking into a bank, and it said the caption was Georgia State walking into the bank after being paid $950,000 to beat Tennessee, basically.
Mm.
And Jordan Murphy comments on the post saying, "Y'all can't tell me that this isn't funny." I mean,
Yeah, that just shows that they're kind of taking it lightheartedly, and
It's like they don't care.
yeah.
and they still have 11 games. I mean,
Totally.
it's not like they're one game away from the season being over.
Hey,
So-
all I gotta say is, can't go 11-1.
Yeah, we're looking at a defeated season coming up
Yeah,
here
totally.
if they keep rolling with this mentality.
Yeah. So do y'all think that the culture that Pruitt is bringing into the second year is a negative culture? I mean, obviously there's off the field issues with a few guys, and I mean, you just kind of saw like a little bit of a lag with the players this past Saturday. So like, what do y'all think the culture's like with Pruitt?
I'm not gonna jump into conclusions yet. I mean, it's game one.
It's week
I mean,
one. It's too early
see,
to
I
make
mean,
any decisions.
Obviously,
on it.
this next week against BYU will let us know what the culture is like and what he's all about. I mean, if they come in and we don't see any improvement on both sides of the ball, I mean, no matter, it doesn't even have to be big. We just have to see improvement. Anything will be better from last week.
Yeah.
I mean, we could lose to BYU, and as long as I see improvement, we're going in the right direction with Pruitt.
Yeah, they can only go up at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for real.
seriously.
if they, gosh,
So is Pruitt on the hot seat, or will
Not
he be
yet.
on the hot seat?
if
I
he loses
think-
this week, he will.
I think if he loses against BYU Saturday night in Knoxville, he's gone the next morning.
I think last year was just a disappointing. Like, obviously, it's his first season, and he claims that those guys aren't his recruits, and that's kind of his quote unquote rebuilding year. And like, he only had 2 SEC wins, in conference wins last year, and then you come in and start your first season with apparently his guys, and you lay an egg against Georgia State. I think if he loses this week, he's in some deep crap going forward. So
And we all know Vols fans get what they want.
yeah,
Exactly.
We all saw how Pruitt got here.
yeah,
And we all saw how Butch
won't be
Jones
scared.
left.
Yeah.
yeah.
They won't be scared to knock this dude out the door.
Exactly.
Yeah, people are definitely talking, and I mean, not as of right now. I mean, obviously, if you lose to Georgia State, they're definitely going to be questioning the coaching. Now, next week they're playing BYU, and then after that they're playing the University of Chattanooga. And these next 2 games are a must win for Tennessee if they want to turn the season around. I mean, not even turn the season around, get the season started. They've only had 1 game.
Yep.
And these next 2 games are really going to decide whether Jeremy Pruitt's going to be sitting on that hot seat. And along with that, this kind of message, them losing to Georgia State, what kind of message does this volunteer performance send to upcoming SEC teams that they've even played yet?
Oh, it shows. It shows, especially to Florida when we play them in a few weeks here. It shows to Florida that we're not ready.
Yeah.
It shows that we're not ready to play in the SEC this season.
Yeah.
When we head to Florida to play them there and they end up beating us by a lot, it's going to really show a lot to especially the defense. Like, we need to step this game up. Like, the way they've been playing is just not up to SEC standards.
How
Yeah.
many SEC wins you think the Vols get this year?
Vanderbilt, maybe.
Maybe.
No, I don't even know about that.
And, I mean, look at last year though. Terrible season. We knocked off Kentucky and Auburn.
Yeah.
2 of like
2
top
of the
5
top 5
SEC,
SEC
teams.
schools, totally.
So I mean, every team has a fluky win.
I say our SEC wins this year are going to be South Carolina, Kentucky, and Missouri.
Yep.
I feel those are the games that we can actually win
Mm-hmm.
because they're later in the season. That's when we'll actually start get rolling, hopefully. And that way, our defense can step it up. Our offense looked pretty strong against Georgia State, but not until the second half.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Totally.
mentioned they are playing Florida in Gainesville in 2 weeks, and I feel like the only way you can even talk about them going into there and putting up a good fight is if when they win these next 2 games, because Florida has proved over the past few years to be one of the most inconsistent teams in the SEC, even though they've been highly ranked. I mean, we'll touch on the Florida-Miami game a little bit later, but that game just proves that Florida can be inconsistent, can be vulnerable to a good offense, which Tennessee proved to have against Georgia State.
Yeah, I think Florida is a must-win game for the Vols. I think it can be a statement game. It can be the way that they turn around their season. I think Ty Chandler needs to turn it around. Garantano needs to not be as sloppy with the football. Defense needs to tighten up. Off the field issues need to clean up. The culture needs to clean up, and I think they could do that all in 1 week against the Gators. I think that's a must win, and that's their first in conference game moving forward. So.
Now, we can all agree that Tennessee needs to win these next 2 games to have a shot at winning against any SEC teams this season, like Florida in 2 weeks. Now, speaking of Florida, what do y'all think of week 1 of college football? And we can start talking about that Florida versus Miami game that we mentioned earlier.
Honestly, I was a little disappointed in that first game. I thought Florida was going to be a lot more consistent. I thought they were going to put up a bigger fight. It was just way too close of a game, and Miami didn't even have what's his name starting.
Tate Martell.
Yeah, Tate Martell.
He was a receiver.
So, yeah,
I mean, that was the biggest story.
Yeah.
of
He
the
was
week.
switching around the whole game
totally.
because he didn't win the starting job.
Honestly, the new dude's not too bad though.
Yeah.
Honestly, I
totally.
think they made the right decision.
What did y'all think of Felipe Franks going 17 for 27, 254 yards, 2 TDs? He played a pretty solid game after not being known as the most consistent quarterback. in,
Yeah,
SEC.
my good old boy Felipe Franks. He's known to be inconsistent over the past few years. He's definitely faced some adversity, and he was talking before the season even started about how he's learned to overcome that adversity. Even though they did beat Miami 24-20, I mean, Florida was ranked at 8th, and Miami's unranked. So, and Felipe still had some trouble, and they only won by 4 points. So I understand that he's trying to say that he's overcome some adversity, but I just think he needs to display that a little more on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt he was a little sloppy with the ball. I felt like the 2 interceptions, they weren't like tip balls. They were straight to the cornerbacks. Like, it was just very inconsistent with his throws. Although he did throw 2 touchdowns and 254 yards, I feel like he can do a lot better than that, especially against an unranked team in Miami. Definitely could have done a little better.
And he wasn't even the sloppy one. I mean, if y'all watched that game, that was probably the worst game of football I've watched in a couple of years. I mean, both sides of the ball, both teams. I mean, it looked like Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. I mean, that game was just atrocious to watch. It was hard to watch. I mean, there were just errors left and right, so many penalties. It did not look like an SEC versus ACC matchup.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do y'all think Felipe Franks can keep it going, or do you think he's considered overrated?
I think he has to prove himself. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that was a fluke. I mean, we've seen Felipe have good games, but he just has to prove himself in SEC play, not out of conference play. Just in big primetime games, he has to prove himself.
Yeah. What do y'all think about the Oklahoma versus Houston game? Jalen Hurts. What do you think of his first game?
Jalen Hurts going off. Big performance out of him. It was really fun to watch.
Do you think he is the Heisman favorite as of week 1?
I wouldn't say he's the favorite, but he's definitely top 3.
Totally.
Okay.
I'm going Trevor Lawrence.
No, I don't know about Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence had a rough week. He was 13 for 23, 168 yards and a touchdown. And Clemson as a whole in the first half was kind of off to a slow start a little bit. They just didn't look very fluid. Trevor Lawrence was, I don't know, he just didn't see himself as of last year. But T. Higgins had a heck of a game, 14 receptions, 98 yards and a touchdown. I think Jonathan Taylor or Jalen Hurts those are my guys for the Heisman this year.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, I mean, obviously a really good display of his skills in the past week's game, but even after the game, in the post-game interview, he was saying how he wasn't happy with the performance, how he thought they looked really sloppy, how they needed to clean things up. And he kind of looked like he was taking a lot of it on him, even though they won the game, even though he had a good performance.
Yeah, 6 total touchdowns coming from Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, this dude doesn't seem to be getting any attention. Sophomore receiver Charleston Rambo from Oklahoma, 3 receptions, 105 yards, 1 touchdown, averaging 35 yards a reception.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts definitely has the talent around him to win a lot of games this season.
I mean, just look at the stats from that game. He went 20-23, threw for 332 yards and had 3 touchdowns.
And 3 rushing touchdowns along with that. He had 6 total, which is just insane.
He led the team in rushing yards. He had 176 rushing yards.
That's crazy.
I mean, with 16 carries. So definitely on the Heisman radar.
Yeah. What do y'all think about Oregon Auburn? What was that game like?
Man, what a crazy game. I thought in the first half, Oregon was really starting to just put the game off. And I didn't think Auburn was going to get back in it. They were down, 21-3, 21-6. Yeah, I thought Justin Herbert had a fantastic game. I thought overall Oregon was looking great until obviously the last play of the game, and Auburn pulled it off. Justin Herbert was 28 for 37, 242 yards and a touchdown. And then the pretty sure freshman running back Tre'Travious Whitlow from Auburn had 24 carries, 110 yards. He had a big night, but
yeah. Speaking of freshmen, how about freshman quarterback for Auburn, Bo Nix?
Bo Nix, man.
I think he definitely lived up to the hype in that fourth quarter.
I mean, he's definitely going to be a good one. I think he looked a little shaky while under pressure. I mean, when there was white jerseys coming at him, he tended to just kind of throw the ball somewhere.
Yeah, it's all about experience.
It is.
Had a couple of games under his belt.
I think he'll be fine in a few weeks, but it's like, especially going into SEC play, like they won't be playing Oregon's defense. They'll be playing, especially at Iron Bowl this year in Bama. So
now, did any games this week have us a little surprised?
Wisconsin,
USF for sure. Wisconsin had me surprised. Notre Dame had me surprised. It was a lot closer than I thought at first. But Jonathan Taylor for Wisconsin and Wisconsin's defense, especially, I mean, USF in years past has been very talented, going to the American Conference Championship multiple years in a row. I think Jonathan Taylor, he's my favorite to win the Heisman this year, coming off a 2,000-yard rushing season last year. So,
yeah, he definitely performed very well. 4 total touchdowns.
Yeah, totally.
He's the workforce in that offense.
Definitely. What other games surprised you guys?
I mean, I don't want to say surprised because obviously the team that was more likely to win won. But the Notre Dame-Louisville game, we watched a bit of that. Throughout the first half, the game was pretty close, and then Notre Dame seemed to take the lead near the end of the game. But Louisville was putting up a pretty good fight, and Notre Dame, in my opinion, every year is kind of a bit of a fraud, especially last year. Last year was probably the best example of them being that fraud. They should have not been in the college football playoff. They should never be allowed in the college football playoff again. I know who said that?
Paul Feinbaum.
Paul Feinbaum. Completely agree with that. We could talk a little bit later about expanding the playoff, but we're not going to touch on that now. But Notre Dame, they won the game 35-17. Ian Book threw 14 for 23, had 193 yards and a touchdown. So pretty good performance out of him. But Louisville still looked pretty good, even though they're an unranked team. It was definitely a fun game to watch.
Yeah, Louisville won 2 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
2.
Yeah.
Ever since Lamar Jackson left, yeah. I'm telling you, dude.
They held their own in that first half against Notre Dame.
Yeah, I thought they kind of looked like the old school Oregon teams, very fast. They all looked like a bunch of Lamar Jacksons. Like,
even the defense was fast.
Yeah, even the defense was fast.
Yeah.
But another game that kind of surprised me, Jackson was talking about it earlier, but BYU and Utah. BYU keeping a tight game in the first half there. And that's Tennessee's opponent this next Saturday. So what do you guys think of that game?
It was definitely obviously it wasn't a surprise. Utah coming in strong this year, ranked at 13th. BYU, they're not going to obviously be quite as good as they were in the past years. They lose 39-12. They are going to be playing Tennessee this next week, but that obviously doesn't really seem to mean much.
Utah was probably definitely was a harder matchup than
Yeah.
Tennessee will put up. But I mean, the stats don't really show it. But I was impressed with quarterback Zach Wilson for
Totally.
BYU. I mean, the first half especially, he's good on his feet, very quick dude.
Reminds me a little of Johnny
A
Manziel.
little bit. He's a little bigger dude. He can more like Sam Ellinger at
Yeah,
at
Texas.
Can run over you. I mean, he looks
He's like
good.
a fullback himself.
Yeah, but another game that surprised me was number 21 Iowa State going triple overtime against Northern Iowa.
Yeah.
Only winning by 3.
Triple overtime.
And that
That's-
was not a game that was talked about much either.
Iowa State's supposed to be a dark horse Big 12 championship team,
Yeah.
and they're out here struggling against Northern Iowa. I mean,
as we're talking about some surprising games, the two main games that people were buzzing about that were surprising were the Tennessee Georgia State game, but then also the Ole Miss Memphis game, which Ole Miss lost to Memphis.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that's not surprising to me at all.
same.
Yeah.
I called that game.
Yeah, Ole Miss, not probably the worst team in the SEC if next to Tennessee, if Tennessee keeps this up. But Memphis has been ranked in the past few years, and Ole Miss hasn't. So I'm not really quite sure why everyone's so surprised by this.
Yeah, I mean, Brady White in the first half came out striking with, I'm pretty sure, 2 touchdowns in the first half. Memphis offense slowed down a little bit, but really to seal the game was the Memphis defense all game long. They got a safety late in the fourth quarter and really closed off the game. And I think that really hurts Ole Miss's confidence going into the future. I mean, losing to a non-Power 5 school. There was a quote by one of the Ole Miss players in way earlier in the season. It was well before the season start, and he called Memphis their little brother. So that was just something that was kind of a slap in the face to him. Just made himself look bad. So
yeah. Current little rookie, second round draft pick for the Tennessee Titans, AJ Brown tweeted a picture of him playing back at Ole Miss last year against Memphis, saying this isn't a rivalry. Do you think it now is?
No.
Last
No.
3 years,
I don't think so.
2-1.
I mean,
They're not the year's 3 matchups. They're Memphis Tigers are 2-1 against Ole
yeah,
Miss.
Yeah.
Definitely, and they've been some chippy games.
yeah.
I mean, there's definitely some beef behind the.
I think there is a rivalry on the Memphis side of things. I
Yeah.
think Memphis views them as a rival, and they view them as a lower brother that they can toss around. But obviously, Memphis has made a statement the past couple of years, proving them wrong. So,
Mhm.
I definitely agree with that statement. I think that it is a rivalry on Memphis' side, and Memphis came out with a chip on their shoulder and proved that right. So,
What do y'all think about the Mizzou Wyoming game? How do you think that went for Kelly Bryant in his
Man.
debut?
yeah, Kelly
Ugly.
Bryant. Oof.
Very ugly.
Yeah,
I mean, he's
Ole Miss native.
yeah.
I mean,
Clemson, and then he got beat out by Trevor.
who was the Ole Miss? Dude, I swear an Ole Miss quarterback or someone, his name's Kelly.
Yes, you're thinking
Chad Kelly.
Chad Kelly.
Chad Kelly.
No, Kelly Bryant.
Not Kelly Bryant.
Kelly Bryant, now his stats actually were pretty good that game. He was 31 for 48 with 423 yards and 2
Well,
touchdowns.
yeah, isn't he
But-
the leading passer in NCAA right now?
Yeah,
Or
he
top
is. Yep,
3?
he is.
I mean, can't be a one-man show,
Exactly.
as Juwan Jennings showed Tennessee fans.
All right, now let's talk about early playoff predictions. Like
All right.
way too early playoff predictions. Week 1.
My number 1 right now is Clemson.
Okay.
Number 2 is Bama. Then I got the 3 and 4 Ohio State and Oklahoma.
Oh, you think Ohio State's going to pull
I think
out this
Justin
year?
Fields is gonna. I mean, the committee loves some Ohio State, especially with Justin Fields at quarterback.
Exactly.
If they win the Big Ten championship, there's no way the committee's leaving them out.
I agree.
And then Jalen Hurts on OU, you already know they're gonna love him.
hmm
So committee is, it's
Yeah.
Garrett, who do you think is gonna be in the championship?
Well, for playoff, I definitely think I have to agree with Jackson. I do agree it's Bama at number 1, though. Clemson at number 2. Oklahoma at 3. And then Ohio State barely making it in at number 4.
Yeah, some teams to definitely look out for. I think the most dangerous team in the league right now is LSU. I mean, if anyone from the SEC is going to make it into that playoff, and it's not Alabama or Georgia, I'm going to go with LSU. Not saying that they're going to be in the playoff, but I'm just saying if it's not like going to be one of those other SEC powerhouse teams like Alabama or Georgia, because they are definitely a force to be reckoned with. Big game this week coming up against Texas in Austin. But yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, it's hard to deny Clemson and Alabama. Then those two other spots, I mean, it's going to be a battle. Could easily be Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State. Who knows? Even Michigan can show up and win the Big Ten.
Now, would you be mad if Notre Dame made it into the playoffs again?
I would be cheated, Garrett. I'll tell you why. And I already said it before. Notre Dame is a fraud every single year. Last year, they they came in at the 4th spot, and I remember everyone complaining because teams like Oklahoma, or no, that wasn't Oklahoma.
It was Ohio State.
It was Ohio State and Georgia, where they should have been in that playoff rather than Notre Dame. And we touched on it earlier, but this can go back to arguing for a expanded playoff to 8 teams. Because I'm not saying that Notre Dame didn't deserve to be in that playoff, but they definitely didn't deserve it as much as Georgia or Ohio State. And if we have the playoff to 8 teams, then we can include all of those teams because they all have, I would think, an equal chance to beat each other, even a powerhouse team like Alabama and Clemson.
Yeah. Notre Dame just needs to join a conference.
Yeah.
They need to cut the independent conference crap and actually join a conference.
Or ACC.
Like, play teams consistently.
So
like, you can't just be traveling around the country playing these no-name teams and then play 2 ranked opponents.
I mean, at that point, like USF's right, or UCF's right. They should have been in the playoff a couple years back.
So do y'all not think Notre Dame made a statement after week 1?
No,
not at all.
No.
If anything, they showed us that they're not legit.
Yeah, if anything, they showed us that they're vulnerable. That first
Louisville showed out more than Notre Dame did to me.
Yeah.
Like, they stood out. I think.
What about the 4th quarter performance by Notre Dame? Really kind of closing the door on Louisville?
I mean, they should have.
Yeah.
It should have been like that anyway. It's just the 4th quarter is how the whole game should have been. If you're looking at rankings and stats.
So, another game. What do y'all think about Penn State this year, putting up almost 80 points in the first game of the season?
It's Idaho.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's an FCS school, but no one else was putting up 80 points this week against their FCS opponents.
I mean, Idaho is a different thing. I mean, Penn State has the number 1 defense in college football this year. So, and honestly, credits to Idaho for scoring 7 on that.
Yeah,
so,
seriously. Yeah. Seriously, that's big for them.
Penn State could move up all the way in the rankings throughout the season. I mean, who knows?
Do y'all think Penn State could be a potential contender?
Definitely a New Year's Six team in my eyes.
Yeah, I think they're a possible playoff team. I think they could give Ohio State troubles in the Big Ten. I'd be interested to see if Michigan could give Ohio State troubles in the Big Ten as well, because they're basically cursed against Ohio State. That's always their last hump.
Now let's move over and talk a little about, since we're based in the SEC, let's talk about who we think will be in the SEC championship. I mean, Alabama is obviously the favorite for the SEC championship, but if they were to get knocked off, I think we could all agree they would be by Texas A&M or LSU, who are both playing in huge games this upcoming weekend. A&M in Clemson, and now LSU taking on Texas in Austin. So game day is going to be in Austin, and LSU has won the last 7 matchups against top 10 AP ranked teams. So y'all think LSU is going to go into Austin and dominate the Longhorns?
I think it's going to be a close game. I think the 6.5 spread right now is pretty good. I mean, I don't know. Depends on what Texas shows up. If we get last year's Texas, it could be a game. If we get Texas, who knows?
Me personally, I was really impressed with Joe Burrow and the Clemson. And the LSU Tigers this week. I mean, he threw for 5 touchdowns basically in the first half. Their defense showed out as well. I think this is Sam Ehlinger and Colin Johnson. They're both very talented people. I just don't know if the Texas defense is going to have enough to hold that LSU offense, because that LSU defense sure can make a couple stops.
Yeah, that Joe Burrow quarterback. It is his 5th year. It is his 2nd year at LSU. He did start last year for LSU, but before he transferred, he sat on the bench at Ohio State for 3 years. So I'm really glad that he's finally getting that breakout season he really wanted.
Yeah, now I think Texas is going to win this game. I love Sam Ellinger, and I love what he's doing, and I think Texas is back. Against Louisiana Tech, he was 28 for 38, 276 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I think Texas is back.
I hope Texas is back. Honestly, I grew up in Texas. Everyone in Texas is either sided with Texas or Texas A&M. And speaking of Texas A&M, they could be another SEC dark horse who are playing Clemson in Death Valley. So do y'all think that Texas A&M can go in there and put their foot down, make a statement?
I think they could, but Clemson is still they're better than Bama this year. They're gonna stay at number 1 unless another game like Pitt happens where they choke or something. I don't know. Clemson tends to do that sometimes. But I mean, this team, that offense with T. Higgins and Dabo, Coach, dude, it's
Justin Ross too. Don't forget about him.
And the running back,
ETN.
Yeah.
So me personally, I'm calling the upset. I think the Aggies can do it. Kellen Mond, he had a pretty breakout week last year. The defense looked good. Kellen Mond was 19 for 27, 194 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, a QBR of 92. I think the Aggies offense has what it takes, and I think their defense is like the stereotypical SEC defense. So,
all right. Another thing that I think is interesting is Texas A&M's schedule, including starting now. Throughout the season, they have to play at number 1 Clemson, home against number 10 Auburn, number 2 Bama, and then they play at number 3 Georgia and at number 6 LSU. Definitely the hardest schedule in all of college football.
Oh, 100% agree. 100% agree.
That's the only thing. I think
5 top 10 opponents.
A regular schedule could, compete and be top 6 team, but I mean, I just don't know how they're going to be able to get through all those games.
Mm-hmm.
They'll win a few, but
I think they do have a chance of winning a few of those games, but I definitely think Georgia and Clemson are going to be their toughest. I do think they can put up a fight against Clemson, but I think Clemson fourth quarter is going to pull it away in the end.
Yeah, I think Clemson is going to be their best bet, but I still have the Tigers beating the Aggies.
So before we're gonna wrap things up, let's make a couple predictions. So what are y'all score predictions for the A&M Clemson game?
Ooh, high scoring. I'm gonna say the over under right now is 64 points. I'm going over.
Wow, over. I'm gonna say 24-17. Go Aggies.
Wow.
Yeah,
really
low scoring game.
I
think.
You think?
I think the Aggies.
The Aggies are going to put 24 points up against Clemson?
Yes.
Really?
100%.
Controversial for sure.
100%.
I mean, the spread, the over under right now is
it's
64.
I know it's very high, and I think the Aggies defense can do it.
64 points. I'm going to go with a tie.
You don't think the Clemson
Nice.
defense
Yeah, I agree with that.
on Aggies?
No, I think the Aggies defense is going to hold Clemson to 17 points. I just think that's going to happen. Clemson allowed 14 points to a very poor bottom of the ACC every single year Georgia Tech team, and I just don't think that was a good sign. So
Now, my prediction
like
for
the
this game,
Vanderbilt.
I think obviously Clemson's going to end up on top. I'm calling 34-24. Now, I think it's going to be under 64, though. I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair, battle of the defenses. And,
I was going to go with the score around that. I was going to go about like 32-17. Clemson definitely going to win the game. Not going to blow them out of the water per se, but definitely going to show that they deserve that number 1 rank. Now, moving on to another prediction we can talk about is LSU versus Texas. So, obviously, LSU and Texas could make a pretty good running and stay in that top 10 rank throughout the season. What do y'all think the score could be for this matchup?
I think the Tigers are going to come up top, and it's going to be 35-28. it's going to be a touchdown game.
I'm going to go 28-21, Tigers all the way.
All right. I'm going 24-23. Texas is back, baby.
Texas is back. Man, I think it's going to be a really close game. The difference maker is either going to be a field goal or touchdown. Could go either way, honestly. I think LSU is the better team at the moment. I don't think home field advantage really means that much anymore. But I'm still going to go with Texas. Texas is back. I'm going to go 27-24 Longhorns. Moving on, just a few other games we could talk about. Army versus number 7 Michigan. Michigan's going to win that one. Probably not going to be too close. Do y'all think the Army can make a running or no?
I do. I think they can.
I think Army with the upset.
Really?
Yep.
Army's one of the most underrated teams in college football this year.
Agreed.
You saw how they played Oklahoma last year, and they had to
That's
take it to
true.
overtime.
They're even better this year.
Yeah, I definitely think Army's going to pull out a close one. So
I definitely think it's going to be a one possession game. It's definitely going to be like 14-7. It's going to be low score.
Yeah, because we have seen Michigan slip up in the past few years. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh, a great coach. They have lost a good amount of their power players, a lot of seniors this year. But moving on to Cincinnati versus Ohio State. Ohio State now ranking at number 5. Do y'all think that Cincinnati can make a showing?
I think I was listening to ESPN College Football today, and they were talking about how if Cincinnati knows how to stop Justin Fields on his feet, they can definitely put up a fight. If they can keep him in the pocket, I think Ohio State still wins, but I think Cincinnati makes it a game.
yeah, I actually very much agree with that. They were talking about on ESPN earlier that Justin Fields' big 60-yard touchdown run that he had, it was just because the linebacker was out of the zone and Justin Fields was just too fast for the breakdown. And then they showed other clips of when the linebacker stayed in coverage and Justin Fields didn't have anything to do with the football when the cornerbacks locked down. So I think Cincinnati's going to go in the film room and lock that down, and they're going to use that to their advantage against the Buckeyes.
Now, I expect Ohio State to win this game, obviously, but I expect another breakout game from Justin Fields. I expect 4 touchdowns, 300-plus yards passing, because I assume he can do that. He showed us that he could week 1. So if he does, then he'll definitely be top of the Heisman list.
Now, finally, we always have to talk about our own Tennessee Volunteers, where Rocky Top is always going to be home sweet home to me. The Mormons coming into Knoxville to take on Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, obviously, terrible performance from against Georgia State. Do you think obviously BYU is also a better opponent than Georgia State? So do you think Tennessee is gonna take another L here in Knoxville?
I don't think so. I think the boys are fired up. I mean, this Monday, after the loss to Georgia State, they had a closed practice. No media, nobody. It's the first time they've done that in a while. So I think Jeremy Pruitt, Jawan Jennings, hopefully Garantano are trying to get the boys ready. And I think they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. They're ready to hit. I think the defense will definitely improve from the last showing. And I think it's a close game, but I got Tennessee winning by a touchdown.
I think Tennessee's going to lose. I think BYU they're going to be more prepared. They played a more quality opponent than Tennessee did last week, and they know how to fight through adversity. Tennessee's dealing with off-the-field issues, on-the-field issues. I don't think Tennessee has the power in them to win this game, especially because Georgia State, I don't think that was a fluke. I think Tennessee's just bad this year. So
Can I get a score?
yeah. Oh, score.
Yeah.
Ooh, I gotta go. I'm gonna go 28-17 BYU.
Oh, okay. See, now I think Tennessee, I think they're getting their stuff together this game. I do believe that they can step it up, especially on the defense. And I do believe that the offense will play like they did, well, even better than they did against Georgia State. Garantano will have another career game, and Juwan Jennings will step up as the leader of this team. I think it's going to be close, obviously, but I think Tennessee comes out the end 28-31.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't think that Tennessee has their heads on straight yet. This past week, we've all heard a lot of talk, a lot of buzz about both on and off the field issues. And the game is less than 2 days away. So if they really need to get their heads on straight in the next 48 hours if they want to win this game. Because I know BYU is going to come in here thinking that they're going to own the place. Which is what Tennessee thought last year. So hopefully BYU maybe looks past Tennessee and the Volunteers come out with the W.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to be a season-defining week for the Vols.
Oh, I forgot.
That's a great term for it.
I forgot my score. I'm going to go, even though I don't think the Volunteers are going to have their heads on straight quite yet, I think they're going to have enough drive to win the game by either a touchdown or a field goal. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game.
The over-under is 52.5.
Yeah, I'm going to go Tennessee winning 17-13.
13. Ooh. That's good. Hey, the line right now is 4 points.
All right, guys, I think we are going to wrap things up here. We had a lot of good talk, a lot of good discussion about our home Tennessee Vols. Hopefully they're going to be able to get their heads on straight for this upcoming game against BYU Saturday night. Talked a lot about week 1 of college football, some games that had a surprise like Oklahoma, Houston, Notre Dame, Louisville, and especially Wisconsin versus USF. And we also made some week 2 predictions like Texas A&M, Clemson, LSU, and Texas, and of course our own Tennessee Vols. So we're definitely going to be back next week to talk a little more college football, talk about week 2, and make some week 3 predictions. So definitely be on the lookout for episode 2, and we'll see you guys next week.